Good morning, everyone. Today is Tu B'Av. Today we are starting the first Perek of Makkos. We're starting Makkos, actually, Maseches Makkos. Yesterday we finished Sanhedrin, and Makkos is 3 chapters, and will take us to the end of the week. Today, tomorrow, and Friday, and then it's Shavuos on Sunday. Today's shir is the Yilei Nishmas, Aaron Nachum and Simcha Cohen. May Hashem have an aliyah, and Refuah Shlema for Yisrael ben Rachel Leah, Rachel bas Pesach Zelda, Rachel Eliana bas Yal Bracha, Avram Yitzchak ben Risha, Chai bas Dababel, Refuah Shlema b'Soch Shar Chol Yisrael, and Shefer Bracha v'Atzlacha for Tzvi Nachman Bracha Rachel Leah in all his endeavors, and a Zivik Bakarov for Shmuel David ben Hind Miriam, and Svi ben Chana, and for all the other singles of Klal Yisrael. Today is Tu B'Av, and the day for Shidduchim. Hashem. Okay, we're switching to a new format today. In the past, I've always recorded the shir on Zoom and uploaded it to YouTube. Today, we are recording straight on YouTube Live. So that's the first time we're doing this. Hopefully, this works out well. And hopefully, we can have the shir without having any technical issues. Okay, here we go. So yesterday, when we finished off Sanhedrin, we were talking about Edom Zomim, about false witnesses. And we talked about in Sanhedrin, we talked about about court cases, capital punishments, monetary punishments, and so Makkos brings in a little bit of it carries over from that, talking about false witnesses, and that is what we're talking about here. So here we go. The prakim are longer than the were in Sanhedrin, so let's get into it. Perek Aleph, Maseches Makkos, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph, Keitzad ha'ed nas and zomimim. How are witnesses punished for being zomimim? What does zomimim mean? So, there's a rule that if witnesses testify that they saw an event take place in a certain place at a certain time, and then a second pair of witnesses comes and testify that they saw the first witnesses in a different place at the same time. So the second set of witnesses is contradicting the first set of witnesses. So the testimony from the first set of witnesses is disqualified, and they are considered Eidin Zomim. And that's an Eid Zomim. The rule is that they get punished in the exact same way that they had intended to do to the defendant. So if they testify that a person committed a murder and is therefore chayived for a death penalty, then they are put to death. And if they are testified that he owes money, then they have to pay money. But not every set of Zomim witnesses can be punished with the way that with what they wanted to do to the defendant. So we're going to discuss those different cases. So case of the Eid Nasi Zomim, how witnesses punished for being Zomim if you cannot give them the punishment that they try to inflict on the defendant. So what are the examples? We testify that so-and-so, who is assumed to be a Kohen, let's say Reuven, we testified that Reuven, who's assumed to be a Kohen, is the son of a divorced woman, or the son of a Chalutza. As we know, Chalutza is a woman who was refused from Ibum. Ibum was when her husband died without having children, and she fell to the brother of her husband to get ibum, and that was refused. So therefore, they have to do chalitza, and she becomes a chalutza. So, and a Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee or a chalutza. And if a Kohen does marry those women, then the son is not a Kohen; he's a chalal. So now, if the witnesses are found to be zomimim, and Omim Yasa said Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza Taktav, you cannot say that you can make the Eidim Zomimim into that they should be disqualified from a Kohen. You cannot disqualify the Eidim from being Kohanim, because if they're not Kohanim, then you're not doing a punishment to them. That doesn't work. So what do you do? Ella Loka Arbaim, rather each of the witnesses gets 40 lashes. It's really 39. It's Makkos Arbaim, it's really 49. And because you cannot make them into the Ben Karusha, Ben Chalutza, because they biologically they don't qualify for that. Next case, Witnesses said that we testified that Reuven killed someone in a realm, and therefore he must go into an Ir Miklat, into a city of refuge, if they are found to be Zomim. We do not say that they should be punished with that which they tried to do to the defendant, because and each Zomim witness should go into Galus instead, because that doesn't work for someone who's an Eid Zomim. The Ir Miklat only works for someone who killed accidentally. Ella Loke Harbaim, you give them Makkos too. They got 39 lashes. You can't do what they wanted to do. Another case. Witnesses said, we testify that so-and-so divorced his wife, and it is known that the husband did not pay his wife, did not pay the ksuba payments. So this becomes a monetary case, and it was found out that the witnesses were found to be liars, and therefore they must pay the amount of money that they intended to take from the defendant. Right, so if the ksuba was 200 zuz, and they were found to be zomim, then they would have to pay instead. But you don't make them pay, because either today or tomorrow the husband might eventually have to pay his wife's ksuba anyways. Because if he dies, or if he actually divorces her, right, then I'll pay. But but on the other hand, if she dies first, then you want to pay anything. So then, what punishment do you do to the Zomim who tried to cause the husband to pay? I mean, right now they're liars, but in a couple of days from now, this could be truthful. So you don't get the mark, because that's not the Mishnah says. We assess how much a person would be willing to pay this woman to buy the rights to a ksuba. That if she is widowed or divorced, the buyer will collect the ksuba instead of her. But if she dies before her husband, then her husband will inherit her and be exempt from paying the ksuba, and the buyer will not get anything. The total sum is the amount that the ksuba is worth right now, and this is the amount that the zomim had to make the husband lose, and that is what they have to pay. Another case. Witnesses said, we testify that Reuven owes Shimon 1,000 zuz. And it was stipulated that he must pay that money within 30 days. Who omer mikan v'esh Hashem? But Ruvain says, I admit I owe the money, but the stipulation was that I pay within 10 years, not 30 days. So the witnesses were then found to be zomim and must pay the amount that they tried to make Reuben lose. Although they tried to make the defendant pay 1,000 zuz, he would not have lost that amount since he admits that he owes it. He would simply have to repay the debt earlier. So how do you calculate this? So Omden Kama Adam Roshalitain, we assess how much a person would pay V'yu of zuz, if he has a loan of 1,000 zuz, ben nostam mikan v'ashloshim yom, and instead of having to repay within 30 days, ben nostam mikan v'esh shanim, he can extend the loan and repay within 10 years. That's the value of the loss that the Zoman tried to cause to the defendant, and that is the money that they pay. So we don't, this becomes a little bit of a problem because we don't charge interest. So how could you pay more? But so you're not actually charging interest to the people, but you're finding out that how much would a person be willing to pay to have this privilege if he was allowed to do so, and then they have to pay the penalty. Mishnah Beis, the witnesses said, we testify that Reuben owes his friend Shimon 200 zuz, and they are then found to be zomim. Lokin and Mishaman, they are given Makkos for having violated the Isra about giving false testimony, and they paid the amount that they tried to cause him to lose, which was 200 zuz in this case. Shalo Hashem Amavili de Makkos maybe they are given both punishments. That the pasuk that makes them chayiv to Makkos is not the same pasuk that makes them chayiv to pay. Therefore, they're over 2 yisurim, and they get two punishments. This is according to Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say, "Kol mishalem ein aloke." Whoever pays is not given Makkos. You cannot be punished twice for a single crime, according to the Chachamim. And since the witnesses are obligated to pay 200 zuz for the crime, they are not given Makkos. Okay. Mishnah Gimel. So witnesses say, we testify that Ruvain is chayiv 40 lashes. Because he violated a Isser, the Torah that's chayiv in Makkos, such as that's eating tarfus. For example, when and they were found to be zomim, they found to be liars. Lokin shmonin, they're each given 80 lashes, 2 sets of Makkos. Why? Mishum lo sana brecha 8 shaker. So 1 set for violating the Isser of you shall not bear false witness against your friend. And number 2 is Mishum Basisum Lo Kasher Zamam, and a second set because of the pasuk, you shall do to them as they plan to do to his brother. Since they tried to make the defendant receive Makkos, they are given Makkos. This is according to Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say, Ein Lokin Ela Arbaim. These Zomer witnesses are given only 40 lashes. They are given 1 set of Makkos. They only given 1 set for trying to make the defendant receive Makkos. They're not given a second set for the Isser of giving false testimony. That's according to the Chachamim. Next case. Mishal Shalin b'Mamon, you can they can divide their punishment when it's regards to money. But they cannot divide their punishment when it's Makkos. Ketzad, how so? If witnesses testify that person owes his friend 200 Jews, and then they were found to be liars and must therefore pay the defendant 200 Jews that they tried to make him lose, they could divide the payment between them. And if there are two witnesses, they each pay 100 Jews for a total of 200. However, if the Yedim testify that that person is Chayav Malkus, 40 lashes, and they were then found to be Zomim, and they are punished with Malkus. Each one of the witnesses receives 40 lashes. They do not divide the lashes between them. So you cannot break them up. Mishnah Dalet Ein Ha'edim Nasim Zomim Achi Zomu Es Atzman. Witnesses do not become Zomim unless other witnesses discredit them personally. However, if the second pair simply contradicts the first witness's testimony, then they themselves are not considered Zomim. Okay, tzad how so? Witnesses said, we testify that Reuven killed Shimon in a certain place on a certain day. So other witnesses said to them, hey, how can you testify that such an event occurred? This person whom you claim was killed, or this person who you claim was the killer, was with us on that day in this place, not where you claim they were, and therefore the murder cannot have taken place as you said it did. Ein elu zomim, then the first witnesses are not zomim, because the second witnesses simply contradicted their testimony. But if the second Edim said to the first witnesses, hey, Edim, how can you testify that a murder occurred? You were with us on that day, the day of the alleged murder, in this place. So that you cannot have seen what you claim to have seen. And so therefore, the second witnesses are not testifying about the murder. They're saying that they're not saying that this happened or not. Rather, they're saying that the first witnesses could not have seen it because they weren't there. Therefore, they're testifying against the witnesses themselves and not about the actual event. Therefore, the first witnesses are zomin, and they are punished with what they had planned to do to the defendant. And since they had planned, they tried to cause him to be executed, and they have put to death on the basis of the second witness's edus. Mishnah Hey. Witnesses testified about a murder, and then the second set of witnesses made them into zomim. Another set of witnesses then came and testified about the same murder, and the second pair who had discredited the first pair now made the third set into zomim as well, because they said back to you regarding the third set of witnesses were also with us on the day in this place. So the same thing happened again. And then another set, the fourth pair, came and testified about the murder, and then the pair who made the other two pairs zomim now made the fourth pair into zomim as well, because one on, one off, one. They're each contradicting the pair before them, so there's always two being disqualified, two coming back on. Even if 100 sets of witnesses testified to the murder, and the same pair makes all of them zomim, kulam yarogu, and all the witnesses who were found to be zomim are put to death. Yeah, not a good situation over here. Rabbi Yehuda says, how can you believe that these witnesses, to say that so many witnesses are zomim? How does that make any sense? If so many people, how do they see everybody? Is tastis izu. this pair of witnesses who disqualifying all the other sets who are coming at them are obviously a group of plotters, and they decided to save the murderer, and they're falsely declaring all the witnesses to the crime as zomim. Rather, zomim are not killed unless they are the first set and the only set of witnesses to become zomim. If more than one group is discredited, then then no one's believed and no one gets killed. It can't be. Mishnah Vav. Ein ha'edin zomim neragin ad sheyegmar hadin. Yigam hardin. Zomim witnesses are not put to death unless the court actually gave a verdict based on their testimony. So what does this mean? When the witnesses testified that a person is chayiv misa, the court deliberates and gives its verdict that he's to be executed. At that point, the second pair of witnesses comes and says the first witnesses were not where they claim to have been at that time. And the first witnesses are zomim witnesses and are put to death. However, if the second pair of witnesses comes after the first pair testified, but before the court delivered its verdict, and the first witnesses are not executed. So, Sharei, Hatzdukin, Omrim, because the Sadducees, the Stukim who deny the law that we just mentioned, and they say Ad Harik, that some witnesses are not put to death unless the defendant was actually killed by the court as a result of their false edus. However, if the defendant was not put to death, even if he was sentenced to death, they are not executed, because the Stukim hold based their opinion on the puzzle that says nefesh tachas nefesh, that a life for life, that the zomim witnesses are only killed because they actually killed the defendant. Otherwise, they would not. The Chachamim said to the Stukim, how can you say that they're only killed only by the death of the defendant? Halok far namar v'asisim lo kasher zaman lazos echav. But the pasuk already says that you shall do to the zomim witnesses as he planned to do to his brother. Harei achiv kayim. The term brother implies that his brother is still alive, which indicates that the zomim witnesses are put to death even though the defendant was not executed. But if so, if the zomim witnesses are put to death, even if the defendant was not killed, so why does pasuk say a life for a life? What does that imply? One might think that even if the witnesses were found to be zomim right after the court accepted their edus, but before the court reached a verdict, that they would be killed. Tamalomar nefesh tachas nefesh. Therefore, the Torah says that a life for a life. This teaches that zomim witnesses are not killed unless the verdict was given based on their edus, and at this point, it is considered as though the defendant's life has been taken, since a person sentenced to death is legally considered dead. Only then can zomim witnesses be put to death, as we learned earlier. Mishnah Zayin, Al Pishnaim Edim Oshlosha Edim Yamasameis. So the Torah says, the pasuk says in Shoftim that by the word of two witnesses or three witnesses shall the condemned person be put to death. If testimony is valid with two witnesses. So why is the pasuk mentioned that is valid with three witnesses? If two are enough, then three are certainly enough. Rather, it mentions three to compare the law of three witnesses to that of two witnesses. The Just as a group of 3 witnesses is obviously believed to make a smaller group of 2 witnesses in the Zomim. Afashnayim Yazomu as Hashlosha. So can 2 witnesses make a larger group of 3 witnesses into Zomim? From where do we know that 2 witnesses can make even a group of 100 witnesses into Zomim? Tamalomer Adim to teach. The Torah says the word witnesses twice. This teaches that every set of witnesses has the same law, no matter how many witnesses it contains. Accordingly, since the Torah states that one set of witnesses is believed to say that another set is Omen, they are believed even if the first set contains 100 witnesses and the second set contains 2 witnesses. Moving on. Rabbi Shimon says that when the Torah mentions 2 witnesses together with 3 witnesses, that's to teach that just as 2 witnesses cannot be executed as Zomim witness unless both of them are found to be Zomim. If you found one is and one's not, then they're not killed. So too, a group of 3 witnesses cannot be executed unless all 3 are found to be Zomim. And if only 2 out of 3 are found to be Zomim, then none of them are put to death. If where we know that the same applies even to a group of 100 witnesses, to teach this, and the Torah says the word witnesses an extra time. This teaches that no matter how large the group, none of them can be punished as Zomim unless the entire group is found to be Zomim. Akiva says, the mention of the 3rd witness does not come to teach any of the laws taught earlier. Rather, it comes to teach that if a group of 3 witnesses is found to be Zomim, we must be strict with the 3rd witness and give him the same judgment as the other 2 witnesses. And he's punished alongside the other 2 witnesses. If so, then the 3rd witness is punished because he joined the group of false witnesses, even though he was not needed. We see that the Torah punished someone who joined with sinners just as it punished the sinners themselves. So how much more so will Hashem reward someone who joins people performing a mitzvah just as he rewards the actual people who perform the actual mitzvahs. Reward for mitzvahs is always greater than the punishment for sins. Therefore, it's a good idea. Okay, Mishnah Ches. Mashnayim. Just as when there's a group of 2 witnesses, one of them is found to be an invalid witness because he was a relative or disqualified witness, then their edus is completely invalid. So too, if there's a group of 3 witnesses, if one of them was found to be a relative or disqualified witness, the edus of the whole group is invalid. Since one member of the group is an invalid witness, we do not accept the edus of anyone in the group. From where do we know that the same halacha applies even to a group of 100 witnesses? If one of them is found to be an invalid witness, and the other 99 are also disqualified from testifying. Talmud Amar Adam. To teach this, the Torah says that the word witness is twice. Teaching that every set of witnesses has the same law, no matter how many witnesses it contains. I'm a Rabbi Yossi said, regarding what type of edus was this halacha said, the dina nefashos only with regard to capital cases. However, with regard to monetary cases, if one of the witnesses was found to be invalid and the rest of the group is not disqualified, and the edus can be established by the rest of the witnesses. Rabbi says, Echadine Mamnus, Echadine Nefashos. In both monetary cases, and capital cases, if one of the witnesses is invalid, all the witnesses are disqualified. Bisman shehisru bahen. But if invalid witnesses see a crime together with a group of people, the whole group is disqualified from testifying, but only when the invalid witnesses warned the criminals not to commit the crime. In such a case, it is clear that the invalid witnesses were not really watching the crime, but they intended to testify about it. It makes them part of the group of witnesses, and their presence disqualifies the whole group from testifying about the crime. But if the invalid witnesses did not warn the criminals, it is assumed that the invalid witnesses are simply watching and do not intend to testify. In this case, they are not considered part of the group, and the rest of the witnesses may give their testimony. So what should two brothers do if they are part of a group of people who saw someone murdering a person? Will the whole group be disqualified from testifying simply because these two brothers who cannot serve together as witnesses happen to see the crime, even though they had no intention of testifying? Surely not. It must be that only those people who intend to testify are considered part of the group of witnesses. Mishnah Tes. A person who is committing a capital crime, two witnesses watched him from one window. Another two witnesses watched him from another window. And the two groups of witnesses could not see each other. And one other person was standing in the middle between the windows and was warning the criminal not to commit the act. So luck is some of these people saw each other, meaning that the person giving the warnings to the witnesses in the windows and they saw him. Then all of them, the first set and the second set and the guy below, they're all considered one set of witnesses. Well, they could not all see each other. The fact that they could all see and be seen by the person giving the warning joins them together as one group in love. But if not, if the person giving the warning did not see the witnesses or they did not see him, then they are considered to be two sets of witnesses, and they are not considered one group. Therefore, if both sets of witnesses testify, one of the sets is then found to be zomim. Hey, hu vehein neharagin, the defendant and the zomim are killed. They are put to death because they tried to have the defendant executed, and and the defendant is also put to death. But the second set of witnesses that was found not to be zomim, they are exempt from punishment. Since the two sets are unconnected, the second set is not punished. It's not affected by the fact that the first set was found to be zomim. Rabbi Yossi says, "Le'olam ein haragin ad shehu pi shnei edav masrim bo." Criminals are not executed unless the two witnesses who testify against them gave him a warning. If, however, a different person gave the warning, as in our case, the warning is not valid and the criminal cannot be given the death penalty. Shnei Amar, as Pasuk says, "Al pi shnaim edim." By the word of two witnesses shall the condemned person be put to death. That implies that whatever is necessary to sentence him to death, including the warning, must be done by the same two witnesses. Davar acher, another interpretation. Al pi shnaim edim. The phrase, by the word of two witnesses teaches shalote sanhedrin shamas b'fi hatorgaman, that the judges of the Sanhedrin may not listen to the edus through an interpreter. They can rely only only if they can rule on a case only if they are fluent in the language spoken by the witnesses and cannot listen to testimony. And they can listen to the testimony directly from the witnesses. That's why the Sanhedrin, they had to know all 70 languages because they could not listen to an interpreter. And the last mitzvah for today, Mr. Yud Mishanig Medina Uvarach. Someone was sentenced to death in a court outside of Eretz Yisrael and ran away before his execution. The Baal if they also based in, and he was caught and brought back into the same court that had convicted him, but the court had now moved to Eretz Yisrael. And so, Dino, nevertheless, the judges do not reconsider his sentence to try to find a new way, a reason to acquit him. Rather, they execute him right away. They do not have to reopen the case because they are the ones who convicted him and will not likely change their decision. However, if the condemned man is brought to a different court in Eretz Yisrael, they do reopen his case because being in Eretz Yisrael brings merit to a person. This merit might cause a judge to find a way to pardon him. Wherever a convicted murderer is recaptured and brought to a court outside of Eretz Yisrael, and two witnesses stand up and say, we testify that Reuven was sentenced to die in the court of Shimon. Uploni, Edav. And the witnesses who convicted him were Levi and Yehuda. Hareze Hareg, then the defendant is killed right away based on the other's verdict. Based on the other court's verdict. The Sanhedrin does not have to judge the case themselves. It was already decided. I mean, if there's any extra merit that needs to be considered, then they would. But if not, then they could just rely on the decision of the first court. Sanhedrin no heges ba'aretz ubechutz la'aretz. So the Sanhedrin functions both in Eretz Yisrael and outside Eretz Yisrael. The Sanhedrin was, capital cases were judged by courts of 23, which are called Sanhedrins. These courts were located in every city, Eretz Yisrael, as well as in places throughout other countries, and the judges in these courts had the authority to carry out capital punishment in every place. Sanhedrin Regis Echa B'Shavua Nikras Chulanis. A Sanhedrin that kills someone once in 7 years is called a destroyer. Elizabeth ben Azariah says that Sanhedrin should not give the death penalty more than Echad Shivim Shana once in 70 years. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Akiva say, Ilu Hayinu Sanhedrin lo nerek adam yolam. If we would have been on a Sanhedrin when they were judging capital cases, no person would have ever been executed. We would have asked the witnesses questions that they would not be able to answer, which would make the testimony impossible, and the accused would not be put to death. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, they too would have increased the number of murderers among the Jewish people. If a murderer would never be put to death, people would not be afraid to commit murder. Therefore, although we try not to carry out the death penalty too often, we do carry it out when it is necessary. That is all for today. We will continue tomorrow with Perek base. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day and happy Tu B'Av.